everybody, I can understand it's a post-lunch session. Okay, the session, as you're all aware, is an Ask Me session. Shifting mindset, emerging trends in technology. Where lies the opportunity for wealth creation? Ask me session, you don't ask me why. You need not ask me the questions, others are there, all the experts can ask questions to them, feed questions to them. We have with us Mr. Sumit Kati, right across there. Sumit Kati is the head investor education and distributor engagement of Baroda BNP Paribas Mutual Fund. Right next to me is Mr. Sandeep Srivastava, AVP and Regional Business Head of HDFC Asset Management Company Limited. And on my left is Mr. Dinesh Kumar Subramaniam, Head of Products, KFinTech. Now, emerging trends in technology and where lies the opportunity for wealth creation. Any disruption in technology actually leads to a paradigm shift. Right from the beginning, whether it was the fire or the wheel or very recently the IT, it all led to a paradigm shift in the business and how we conduct the business. Today, we are in the threshold, technology, a lot of it we do understand, a lot of it do not understand, artificial intelligence, machine learning, say what you may, but those who are in the business, they can learn from the history and look to the future. Learning from history, we would like to, sort of take forward where we are today, and then maybe, look to the future. How far into the future is the question. Vikshit Bharat in 2047, that's 23 years down the line. And these days, disruptions take place maybe in 2 to 3 years. But having said that, we can think, dream, maybe dream with the foot, especially in reality, but we can dream, why not? Now, where we are as of today, in different asset management companies, or how we are engaging with the customers, how we are accessing the customers, KYC, tracking funds, NAV, real-time information. In the morning, we have been speaking a lot on, how we need to engage customers, what are the risks involved, and then subsequently, what are the asset management companies doing in-house, in the back office, or in the investment, where do we stand today? Are they using advisors, AI, machine learning, in whichever way it has come? Data analytics, we have been speaking of data in the morning, even the old-time members, SEBI, and everybody was speaking on that. And how are we helping the millennials? Why I'm mentioning the millennials is millennials or the Gen Z, they are the youngsters today, and maybe they would drive till 2047. To begin with, Sumit, if I can reach out to you, where are we today as far as accessing, customers, and how are we handling or onboarding customers as of today? With a tech, backbone in mind.
Okay. So, as you mentioned, it's like when we talk about today's generation, what we generally mention is that maybe the generation what I belong to or you belong to, we have to learn technology. And this generation what we're talking about is born with technology. So when it comes to anything to do with not only onboarding, I would say, it's like there are a lot of things using not only AI. Today, data is everywhere. And when we have to touch these people, like Gen Z, millennial, next generation, Gen Z, what we talk about, they are placed on Instagram, they are there everywhere on, say, all social media. So, touching them there somewhere and talking to them, the base remains the same when we talk about goal setting. Because we might feel that our feeling is that when we talk about Gen Z or Gen Alpha, maybe goals are out of the window and they are just living for the YOLO. you live only once, and those all things is what they keep on repeating. But I would say that that's not the case. Many a times, touching them on their goals, and their goals could be experiences. And for that experiences, how do I save or invest money, and how do I take it that forward? If I'm able to touch them on that, they do connect with us. And to answer your question, it's like for the onboarding part of it, somewhere the blend of online offline works with us. So that's how we are doing.
Right. In fact, you mentioned that how you are, touching base with Gen Z, also the millennials. In fact, in the morning also, a lot was said about the quantity of data that we have, humongous data that we have. But analyzing those data, how we do the data analytics. In fact, when we were in SBI, when I was in SBI, there was a whole program of cleansing the data. It used to be called, cleaning Ganga, the Ganga cleaning, and it took about 4 to 5 years to clean the data. And unless you have data which is clean, you can't analyze. It's of no use. So with this humongous data, what is being done to touch base with the Gen Z or the millennials?
Okay, so with this data, as you rightly mentioned, great data is available. So if we can not only segregate, but we compartmentalize. For example, just to give you an example, there would be a lot of Gen Z who are watching certain kind of content. So when I say content, let's say some people who are following a lot of influencers. That's a different debate altogether. That what influence is a different ballgame altogether. But anyways, coming back to the point, people who are watching, let's say, their spends, people who are there, the kind of content what they put on to their Instagrams. So those things are basically compartmentalized, and based on that, maybe we try to see that again coming back to the same point of goal planning where we say that. So can I look into their insight, and there is where we try to present this.
Sandeep, the same questions to you if you can. In HDFC, what are you looking at? How are you doing?
So, we try to keep it very simple and specific, whether it is Gen Z or Zen Alpha, whatever say name terminology you use. But the important is like the goal planning. And what we address that we just want to make them understand the challenges what they are going to have in the future. So today the biggest challenge I think for the Gen Z or for the younger generation, because India is a country where the mean say age is less than 30 years, and there is a survey which says say people who are less than 35 years, so there is a good probability that they will live more than 80 years, 90 years of age, and the working age say will be some 50, 55 years. So that is the important challenge that you will be working for 50, 55 years and you have to survive for say 80, 90 years. So what is the planning? So that is something because today Gen Z and all this young generation, they are actually smarter than the previous generation. So their understanding, the way they say analyze the situation is actually much better than what we actually perceive. So we are doing a lot of such kind of programs, a lot of initiatives where we try to make them understand the importance of long-term investing, say retirement planning, some goal-based investing, and there the role of this technology comes in play. So now we know that if you see the SIP book size, like it is close 25,000 crores, a lot of money is coming through this fintech channel. So it is coming through digital. But it is not important today, like as an industry, we boast that this is the SIP book size what we are having. But the bigger challenge is like the market, if there is a volatility in the market. So it is very challenging to understand how the people who got onboarded in the last 2, 3 years, how they will react if the market falls down. Because if the SIPs are say stopped in say 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, there is no point of doing SIPs or doing the financial planning. Everything will go in vain. So, as an industry, as a mutual fund company, it is our responsibility, and we are very serious that people who are getting onboarded, they should be properly handled. And there the role of physical is more important than of a digital. It has to be physical plus digital. So there should be a human touch, and there the role of our say distributors, our partners, it comes in place. It is very important how to handle it, and there we are doing a lot of such awareness programs through digital, through physical mode also. A lot of IITs I think should be done and being done in the industry because the coming time is very challenging because it is good. Demography is to our side. People less than 30 years, that is the way, that is the reason why India is growing. But we have to keep in mind that we have to take good care of this young generation. They should not fall in the future. So that is how we are dealing with it. So we are very serious and we understand that as a fund house, as a bigger fund house, this is our responsibility also, not only the business, to make them understand how to plan their future goals.
Lovely. In fact, you mentioned the demography is on our side. Longevity, you mentioned 80 to 90 years, but in National Pension System and PFRDS, we had a conclave with the UK pension fund and others. And in 30 to 40 years time, and the way the health or the medical improvements are taking place, they were forecasting longevity in 2050, people living up to 120 years. So I think we need to take a look at that. Having said that, you mentioned about fintech. You're coming from the fintech side, Vignesh. Now, how fintech is taking this as a challenge?
Hi, good evening, everyone. So, whenever we talk about any of these subjects, one is when we see what we want to address, but we should not miss our territory, what we are trying to target. So, whatever you do, it fits into three basic principles. One is innovation, which in which case many fintechs, many AMCs, many distributors, different capacity they do. Second thing is how do you scale that innovation? Where we pay. So for example, in the morning session, there were data which has been spoken by the earlier speakers. The industry has grown the investor size into 2x in the last 4 years. And still we are not even 5% of the overall population. Assume that if tomorrow it comes to 10% or 15%, are we in a position to manage the scale of operation and what is the investment we are required to put onto this thing? And third, most important thing is what is the governance? It can be our cyber resilience investment, what we wanted to put, or the data principles that we want to put. We are actually in a very good spot as a country where the policy makers are investing in two important things. One is they say how do you make your data which is more democratic for accessing, because many of the people here are either distributors or coming from the manufacturing side. So today data democracy is something which is a reality. Using principles like account aggregator, which has been covered by RBI, you can access the customer's data. So today, possibly many of you are trying to meet your customers. The first challenge you have is you don't know what is the information what you're getting and what is the sanity of that information. If I am your customer, I say I have got 1 lakh rupee, you believe in that 1 lakh rupee and you're planning for me. You don't know exactly whether the customer against you is having 1 lakh or more. So today, those things have been addressed with account aggregation, where you can have a complete portfolio view of a customer that includes his bank account savings, his pension investments, his insurance investments, his mutual fund, his equity, everything in a single view, which will help you to do your job far better. On the other side, government has also imposed the DPDP Act, which is say how do you use your data, because today this is one way that your personal data has been used very randomly in terms of people targeting you and annoying you on different channels. And this again has to be curtailed. Hence, there is a formal policy which has been imposed, which is a very tall penalty. If anyone who doesn't follow the DP Act, it's going to get 250 crores penalty on the organization who doesn't do it. So typically, no organization would dare to do this thing. In fact, bill is already in work in progress. This will take place. Now, the trend what we see in the fintech ecosystem is earlier we were largely talking about fintech as a buzzword for the last 4 5 years. Today, we have a scenario where we are talking about wealth techs, where typically you get advisory in nature because all the fintechs earlier were kind of execution platforms. Now you're getting actually the advisory platform. I see a lot of different models which are coming up, which is helping the RIS, which is helping a proper advisory ecosystem to get evolved. So that is another thing which we see as an ecosystem which is growing.
Just jumping the queue, you mentioned about data and data protection. But as of today, how do you do it? Anonymize data, or you actually look into specific data? Because there is a concern about data protection.
So today the way what it operates is so there is a data principal who is the customer here because we operate on behalf of many of the agencies, and there is a data fiduciary, and there is an appointed agency where the RTAs are an appointed agency and data fiduciaries are the agency themselves. So we are in that capacity we are allowed to MI as the data. So what we do is we see the behavior of the customer with the holistic view of the data and give the customer's concern, which is very specific to that distributor or to the specific AMC where we are running different AI ML models, which will give you a given output. Because today propensity modeling of what is the customer's next fixed action is something very critical. Today I have 100 rupees, I cannot throw 100 rupees on all my customers. I have to be very specific in terms of what type of action this customer is likely to do and invest my money on that. So for those things, we do the behavioral study of the customer, but when it comes to the final output, it is very specific to your customer and what is this behavior will not change. But whether the customer belongs to you is going to be the impact.
Right. You mentioned about advisors. You also spoke about robo advisors. Having said that, Sandeep, in HDFC, in your asset management company, are you using robo advisors which are actually sort of engineered by AI or machine learning, which are available 24/7?
No, hello. No, in fact, till date we are not using any robo advisory like in our distribution. So we are relying on the traditional distribution model. Yes, fintech is playing an important role because overall, if you see the industry also today, some more than 50% new SIPs, new folios, new PANs, they are added through fintech. So we are working closely with fintechs because they are getting new customers like on board. But we are still a little cautious about robo advisory because what we still feel advisory needs a lot of this physical intervention, physical touch is required, and still people they should have that financial literacy, and that has to be given more importance. So that is where we are.
Sumit, would you like to add something? After that, maybe you wanted to, give a presentation also.
I would second that what Sandeep said. Yes, we also believe that when we talk about advisory is more of that personal touch. What we say. Yes, we also use fintech, but as far as machine replacing the whole human emotion, and especially again coming back to the basics of that goal planning could be different for other people, different for different people. Based on that only, so you want me to present it? If you want. Sure, sure. So carrying on with this thing only, I would like to present something. So I would take round 7 to 9 minutes. Okay, and I go to the same basics. I was told that I'm supposed to speak on something on goal planning. लेकिन आज हम बातें करेंगे कुछ पैसों के बारे में. First of all, पोस्ट वन सेशन है. सबसे पहला सवाल पूछूंगा, आप में से कितने लोगों को पैसे चाहिए? दोनों हाथ बराबर, हो सके तो पैर भी। पैसे तो अपने खुद नहीं चाहिए, पूरा उड़ रहा है। अब कितने पैसे चाहिए? ये मुझे हमेशा यही जवाब मिलता है, आई आस्क दिस क्वेश्चन, आई गिव दिस आंसर, पैसे तो चाहिए। कितने पैसे चाहिए? इनफाइनाइट। ओके, और कोई जवाब? सॉरी, थोड़ा सा, और थोड़ी की जरूरत है। ओके, जनरली आई गेट आंसर्स जस्ट शॉर्टेज ऑफ टाइम, पीपल गिव द आंसर्स ऑफ कि इनफाइनाइट, जो कोई खत्म ना हो, ब्ला ब्ला ब्ला, ऑल दोस काइंड ऑफ थिंग्स। आप उस पैसे को लेके करोगे क्या सर? व्हाट विल यू डू दैट मनी? खाएंगे पिएंगे ऐश करेंगे और क्या? In fact, just to cut the long story short, I get those answers of right for that basic requirement कि भाई मैं अपने बच्चों को पढ़ाना चाहता हूँ, से लेके रिटायरमेंट प्लानिंग से लेके मैं आइलैंड सीखना चाहता हूँ। लेकिन जस्ट इमेजिन, भगवान कहते हैं, गॉड सेज, आपने जो पैसा मांगा आपको दिया, वो थोड़ा हो, इनफाइनाइट हो, लेकिन उसके बाद आपने जो कुछ लिस्ट गिनाई ना, जो भी लिस्ट रहेगी, उसमें से एक भी चीज आप नहीं कर सकते। Let me just walk 30 seconds back. When I even asked you कि भाई कितने पैसे चाहिए, उस टाइम पे पोस्ट लंच सेशन होने के बावजूद जस्ट इमेजिन हम थोड़ा सा हंस रहे थे, एक दूसरे की टांग खींचने की कोशिश कर रहे थे। बट as soon as I came and told you कि आपको पैसे तो दिए लेकिन आप वो चीजें नहीं कर सकते, लगता है क्या क्या मजा आ रहा है? Maybe as a human brain now, I understand a lot of other things on the basic part which we say is that इसी को तो goals कहते हैं technical terms में. The finance world, maybe just why do we say that goal planning is a must and all those things? क्यों बोलते हैं? Right, from the advisory as well as from the investor perspective. Just imagine एक फुटबॉल का ग्राउंड है, उस पे ना प्लेयर्स बॉल लेके दौड़े जा रहे हैं, दौड़ रहे हैं, डॉज कर अच्छी तरह कर रहे हैं, लेकिन ऑन दैट फुटबॉल ग्राउंड गोल पोस्ट नहीं है। आफ्टर मेबी से 40 मिनट 45 मिनट के बाद क्या हालत होगी? फ्रस्ट्रेटेड, एज सिंपल एज दैट। मतलब टॉकिंग टू अ नॉर्मल गाय, लेट इट बी अ जेनजी और लेट इट बी एनीबॉडी, या फिर लेट्स से इवन आवर ओन जनरेशन, किसी ने बोला इंश्योरेंस ले लिया, किसी ने बोला एसआईपी कर लिया, किसी ने बोला कंटिन्यू करते चले, बट विदाउट दैट गोल many a times it might just be there and we say that that's the reason goal planning से शुरुआत होती है लेकिन खत्म यहाँ पे नहीं होता। I would just show you something. What is this? क्या दिख रहा है आप लोगों को? क्या ये? इन्होंने मेरे को इतना कुछ कहा, इन्होंने एक बात बोला, भूल के मुझे कम सुनाई देता है। इन्वेस्टमेंट। Okay, investment. I for investment. Okay. ये क्या है? What is this? Okay, what is this? Okay, what is this? This, 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 this. मान के चलते हैं अगर ये चीज है, एक पीस ऑफ पेपर का अगर आपके सामने लिखी हुई है और इसे अगर एक लाइन ऐड करके अगर मुझे 12 बनाना है तो कैसे बनाऊंगा मैं? वेरी सिंपल, एज यू राइटली सेड, ऐड किया, ये किया, राइट? नाउ अगर यही चीज अगर मेरे सामने लिखी हुई है और मुझे अगर इसको 6 बनाना, कैसे बनाऊंगा मैं? I can see somebody there कट करके, okay, फोल्ड करके, just for the shortage of time. Let me just walk 30 seconds back. मैंने आपको जो कुछ ये चीजें दिखाई, अगर मैं आप and take my words, ये सेम चीजें हम लोग शायद 20 साल से यही करते हैं। As I asked you, you said I. When I go forward, some people say 2I. As I go ahead, बोलते 3I ज्यादा हो गया, अभी 3I तो नहीं होगा। Then we spoke about Roman. यहाँ पे आगे एक सिंपल सा क्वेश्चन पूछा, इसको हम 12 कैसे बनाएंगे? इसका आंसर भी you only gave it and it was a Roman 12. मतलब Roman चलता गया। If I would have not shown you all this and if I would have come directly here, आप में से काफी लोगों के दिमाग में आता कि S लगा के 6 बनाते हैं। What does this do? My own example. Today I am 46 years of age. 46 साल की जिंदगी में मेरे साथ मेरे जो रोमन हुए रहेंगे, उस रोमन से ही मैं सोचना शुरू करता हूं फॉर माय इन्वेस्टमेंट आल्सो. सो लेट इट बी व्हेन वी से प्रेजेंसी टॉक्स अबाउट उसने जो जिया है जिंदगी. So what I'm trying to drive is that when we talk about goals and all, I need to talk their language. Their language कि शायद रोमन आपकी जिंदगी का अलग है, मेरी जिंदगी का शायद अलग हो. Why am I talking to you all this? Very simple. एक simple example लेते हैं. गुल्लक समझते हो? पिगी बैंक. मान के चलो मेरे पास 2 पिगी बैंक है. दोनों में पैसे बचाता हूं. एक पिगी बैंक में मैं स्टिकर चिपकाता हूं दिस इज फॉर माय डॉटर्स एजुकेशन, और एक पे मैं स्टिकर नहीं चिपकाता, और दोनों में पैसे जमा करता हूं. खुदा ना खास्ता कल जाके पैसे की जरूरत पड़ जाए, इन दोनों में से वन जिसका स्टिकर चिपका हुआ है, एक पे स्टिकर नहीं चिपका हुआ, दोनों में से कौन सा गुल्लक पहले फूटेगा? स्टिकर नहीं है. कोई चीज रोकती नहीं है मुझे टू ब्रेक द अदर वन, बट आई विल डू दिस. मतलब अगर मैं अपना एसआईपी या कोई चीज गोल से बांधता हूं तो मैं उसे उस टाइम तक कंटिन्यू कर सकता हूं. प्रोबेबिलिटी इज हायर. सेम इज एप्लीकेबल फ्रॉम अ एडवाइजर पर्सपेक्टिव, सेइंग दैट शायद मैं उसे बांधूंगा तो ये शायद लंबे समय तक चलेगा. एंड वी ऑल नो, जस्ट टू we all must have heard about this thing. I'll just like to reiterate. We must have heard a rule called as 15-15-15. 15-15-15. Just to reiterate, 15,000 रुपया अगर मैं हर महीने एक ऐसे एसेट क्लास में बचाता हूं जो मुझे 15% पर एनम रिटर्न दे और 15 साल करता हूं, कितना पैसा बनता है? 1 करोड़. जादू इसमें नहीं, जादू तो अगले वाले में, जिसे हम कहते हैं 15-15-30, 15-15-30. मतलब सेम थिंग, 15,000 रुपया इन एन एसेट क्लास व्हिच गिव्स मी अ 15% पर एनम इफ आई डू इट फॉर 30 इयर्स. पहले 15 साल में कितना बना? 30 इयर्स में कितना बनता है? मैंने आई जनरली गेट आंसर कि भाई 2 तो बनता नहीं होगा इसलिए पूछ रहे हैं. 3 करोड़ 4 करोड़. यू आर राइट सर. ये बनता है 10 करोड़ रुपया. मतलब फर्स्ट, व्हाई एम आई टॉकिंग टू दिस? जनरली क्या होता है, वी ऑल नो, मैं किसी के कहने पे एसआईपी शुरू तो करता हूं. गोल प्लानिंग सर ने आके बोला कि बच्चे के एजुकेशन के लिए करना है, कर लिया. आईफोन 17 आएगा, वो खरीदने के लिए मैं निकाला. So if I am able to tie it to that Gullak wala theory, maybe I will be able to stay. Just last 30 seconds I take. Request all of you to please stand up. Please stand up. If you want to say, don't want to say. Okay. पिछले I think I would have taken about say some 8-9 minutes. मैं अभी तक जो कुछ बोल रहा हूँ, are you guys listening? Yes or no? Yes. Yes? Okay. Let's see. अभी मैं जो बोलूंगा वो आप करोगे. Put your right hand up. Put your left hand up. Put your left hand behind. अबे राइट हैंड जो है, कैन यू हियर मी देयर? यस यस. ये जो राइट हैंड है, कर्ल योर फिंगर्स द वे आई एम कर्लिंग. अपनी उंगलियां मोड़िए जैसे मैं मोड़ रहा हूं, और इसे है ना अपने गाल पे लगाइए. गाल क्या होता है? बैठो नीचे सबके सब. इनफैक्ट अगेन ये चीज आज भी 22 साल से कर रहे हैं. कुछ लोग होते हैं क्राउड में जो ना प्रॉपर गाल पे लगाते हैं, फिर वो बगल वाले का देखते हैं. और खास करके पीपल हु आर स्टैंडिंग हियर, सिटिंग हियर, उनको देखते हैं. अगर उसने ऐसे किया रहेगा ना, शायद ऐसे अपने इन्वेस्टमेंट की दुनिया में, खास करके यहाँ पे खड़े हुए दोज ऑफ पीपल जो टीवी पे आते हैं, जो 4 आर्टिकल लिखते हैं, in the past 8-9 minutes or whatever we are talking about, don't we all know कि गोल होना चाहिए, गोल अच्छी होना चाहिए, इसको ये करना, हम सब जानते हैं. लेकिन देखा देखी we copy a lot. बोलने का मतलब, to answer very simple question sir, it's like goals are personalized. उसको करने के लिए मैं देखा देखी one size does not fit all, इसीलिए पर्सनलाइज एडवाइस के काम आता है. हम सब जानते हैं गाल किनारे देखा देखी कॉपी बहुत बार करते हैं. So with this, I'll stop here, sir. For your presentation.
In fact, you have laid the platform for the next speaker, Sandeep. I think he will take us through human behavior. You were mentioning about human behavior. And SIP. Basically, SIP is the flavor of the day. So, some technology issues. In the meantime, I think Sumit, the third time you're ready, can you tell us, as far as the investment is concerned by the asset management company, what is the role of tech in managing the mutual fund
So, question was like the role of tech in managing investments in the mutual fund. As you said, sir, earlier, today data is available everywhere. As simple as using right from research to not only the customer facing part of it. Customer acquisition might be one part of it, but in the investment decisions, tech helps a lot. Let me take a very simple example. If you remember, say 20 years back, people who've been in stock markets and all, sir, उस time पे manually हर एक annual report पढ़नी पड़ती थी, con calls लिखने पड़ते थे. But today you have AI tools which will do all that for you. That's what the research, right? For the research to stock selection. Two, of course, a vast part of the industry which talks about customer acquisition, customer retention, understanding their goals. Agar somebody is investing, has done a particular SIP for their daughter's education, what about retirement? So on and so forth. So tech helps in modeling the future requirements as well.
Are you ready?
Yeah, ready. So thank you so much for your patience. And this is what sometimes disruptions from digital. So I think that is like never intended, but it happened. So today my this presentation topic is like higher for longer. Have you heard about this term before? Higher for longer, and where have you heard it? Generally, like if you see the US Fed rate, generally they use this word higher for longer. So they wanted to keep interest rate higher for a longer time. So I have taken this, I coined this word from there only, higher for longer, and this is for the investments. Because mutual funds, I represent SDFC mutual fund. In mutual fund, like, the longer you are invested, the better you are placed at, the more return you get. But what happens? So I'll briefly touch upon the mistakes what generally one investor they do, they commit during their investment. So this is about the investor behavior. So people IQs are rising every year. However, patience levels are falling. How many of you agree with me? Do you agree? Okay. So in this age of social media, it has become very challenging to like think long term. Attention span of social media like has dropped from 2.5 minutes to 8 seconds over last few years. अभी लोग जो है बहुत कम समय तक जो है सोशल मीडिया पे, if you watch any reel also ना, you will find कि 8 to 10 seconds you change the reel, even if it is interesting. And we are talking about long term investment. We are talking about the millennials, we are talking about the Gen Z, Gen Alpha, जहाँ पे कि सोशल मीडिया पे भी उनका जो स्पैन है is around 8 seconds, and we want them to invest for 20 years. And that is where I feel the role of advisory is very important. क्योंकि अगर सिर्फ डिजिटली होता ना तो सारा काम हो गया होता, then role of advisors would have not been required. And so under normal circumstances, women should have a moving body and a stable mind. Women should have a moving body and a stable mind, but instead it has changed to a stable body and a moving mind. So all like known as a popcorn brain. तो अभी जितने भी लोग हैं investors हैं, it is not only say like millennials and all, सभी का जो brain है ना, it is working like a popcorn brain. So it is like a moving brain and a stable body. इस challenging situation में we have to make long-term investments. Like as I told initially, कि सबसे बड़ा challenge है for the younger generation is the long-term investment. Long-term investment मतलब he has to invest for 20 years, 30 years, 40 years. That is because he requires money for so long. Because if someone has retired at the age of 50, 55, his earning years are only like till 50, 55 years. And like as sir told, he may live for 100 years also. So you have to survive with your savings for another 40, 45 years. And like in that context, अगर मैं किसी से बोलता हूँ what is long term, I'm working with the SDFC group for last 22 years, and this is the common question like what investors or distributors they ask to me, what is long term? Is like 3 years is a long term, 5 years is a long term, 10 years is a long term. What is a long term? तो आपको क्या लगता है? What is a long term? And what should be the long term? Given the context that इसी saving से, इसी investment से, you have to survive for say 40, 50 years. So I think there are a couple of things which we should keep in mind. Like before investing, investing is not just a fun. अभी क्या हुआ है last 3 years में, 4 years में markets have delivered very good returns. A lot of new investors they have joined us thanks to fintech platforms, thanks to other platforms. But what will happen? It is very interesting to see कि अभी markets is then say volatile and the market falls down, which may happen. तो उस समय what would be the behavior? तो जो उनका goal planning है वो कहाँ पे जाएगा? Because emotions play a very important role in the field of investment, like other fields. So 5 years is not a long term in equity investing. Even I feel that 10 years is also not a long term in equity investing. Because there are a couple of times when you will find good companies like Reliance Industries, HUL, they have like not given say any return in 10 years span also. So there are times, though they earn like their earnings were there, their earnings grew from like 10,900 to 23,200 crores for Reliance Industries and same with HUL also. So it grew, but the stock price didn't move. So there are so many things. Even 10 years may not be a long term, and long term it has to be related with the goal. Like if a youngster, if he's some 30 years, 35 years, and he knows he is going to earn only for 15, 20 years, his long term should be some 40, 50 years in fact. Because he has to be like sufficient with the kind of money which can survive him for 30, 40, 50 good years. So that is very important. So the other thing is many times at the time of investment we feel कि if this is the right time to invest or a bad time to invest. अभी क्या लग रहा है? What do you think? Is this the right time to invest? कई बार हमें लगता है कि valuations are very high. Like as a manufacturers, many times we get say queries from the distributors, from the investors कि अभी investment करना चाहिए या नहीं करना चाहिए. Many feel कि market is very expensive. How many of you feel that market is expensive? You can raise your hand. Others feel the market is like not expensive. Huh? I heard very expensive somewhere. So market is expensive, many feels markets are expensive. Then what should we do? Should we invest or should we not invest? Huh? Of course invest. Why should we invest if the markets are expensive? Because we have a belief that market will further go up. Correct? So that is one thing. And I'll show you the same thing. Like this is the year. This is the year during the dot-com bubble. So that time the market PE was 45. So 45 was like very high PE. Market current, what is the current market PE? 23, sir told. Imagine of 45 PE. तो 45 PE पे भी किसी ने अगर इन्वेस्टमेंट किया होता ना, तो आज अगर मैंने मार्केट लिया था से मार्च 24 का, अगर मार्केट वाज 18,000, again it is hovering around 18,000, तो भी मार्केट would have given him 9% रिटर्न अगर उसने मार्केट पीक पे भी पैसा डाला होता. Second example I have taken when the market was like आपका P was 28. 1992. Actually, the first example was the year 1992. Harshad Mehta scam वाला time था. Second is the dot-com bubble when the P was 28. उस समय भी अगर किसी ने इन्वेस्टमेंट किया होता तो मार्केट would have given him 9% का रिटर्न तभी दिया होता. Third was आपका प्री GFC जो ग्रेट फाइनेंशियल क्राइसिस है, उस समय भी किसी ने अगर इन्वेस्टमेंट किया होता, that time again market P was like today 26 का P था, तभी ने मार्केट में 26% से 9% का रिटर्न दिया होता. तो मार्केट क्या है? मार्केट आर द स्पेस ऑफ द अर्निंग. अगर आपका अर्निंग अच्छा है लॉन्ग टर्म में, तो डोंट नीड लाइक कहते हैं ना कि डोंट टाइम द मार्केट बट गिव टाइम टू द मार्केट. आपको मार्केट को टाइम देना होगा, और टाइम जो देना होता है ना, इट हैज टू बी, इट कैन नॉट बी लाइक 3 इयर्स 4 इयर्स 5 इयर्स. इन्वेस्टमेंट इज अ सीरियस बिजनेस. यू हैव टू गिव लॉन्ग टर्म टाइम. आपको कम से कम 10 साल 15 साल 20 साल देना होता है. तो that is very important. Second misconception that SIP can create wealth in 5 to 10 years. बहुत से लोगों को लगता है कि they are doing SIP can create wealth in 5 to 10 years. Equity investment करते हैं, we do investment for 5 years 10 years, ऐसा नहीं है. This is a very interesting क्या कहते हैं slide एक बनाया था. That is SIP higher for longer. इसके अंदर हमने ये दिखाया हुआ है कि if someone has started a SIP, short term में क्या होता है? अगर रिटर्न like I'm trying to compare the return of equity with FD, and like in the long term अगर कोई मंथली SIP कर रहा है 2 लाख रुपए, 2 लाख रुपए पर मंथ की मंथली SIP कर रहा है, and the SIP is giving 12% return, okay, and FD I have taken assumption कि say giving 6% of return. 5 years और 10 years में क्या होता है ना, 5 years में जो प्रिंसिपल होता है वो 73%, 12% रिटर्न के बाद भी 73% is your principal, और 10 years में भी 52% is your principal. ठीक है? As the time progresses, 20 years में जाकर के 24% will be your principal and rest is the return. Are you getting my point? Initial 5 years, 10 years or 15 years में most of the amount is your principal only. If you are doing a SIP for say 2 lakh rupees per month or maybe any amount, and FD में क्या होता है कि 5 years में 86% is your principal, 10 years में 73% is your principal, and 20 years में भी 52% is your principal. तो अगर आपका 20 years में 2 लाख रुपए का SIP becomes 20 lakh rupee, 20 lakh rupee in 20 years, 2 lakh रुपए का SIP giving 12% of return, and FD will be giving you 9 lakh rupee with a 6% kind of return. And in 20 lakh rupee आपका 20 crore बनता है say in 20 years, 20 crores में 24% is your principal, rest is your return. यहाँ पे FD में 9 crore बनता है, इसमें 52% is your principal only. So this thing has to be kept in mind. This again reiterate the same point what I was trying to telling you कि आपको you have to do say SIPs or equity investment on a longer term. So 20 years you feel is a short time or a long time? लोगों को लगता है 20 years is a say a long time, but I'll try to show you मुन्ना भाई, लॉर्ड ऑफ रिंग्स, स्वदेश, ये मूवीज को कितना साल हो गया? These movies are more than 20 years. Okay, but हमें लगता है कि शायद हमने ये मूवी को अभी कुछ साल पहले देखा है. We feel that we would have watched this movie some 5 years back, 10 years back. ऐसा लगता होगा सब. But these movies are more than 20 years. So this is like where I'm trying to come. कि जो investment है has to be long term. 20 years is not a long term. अगर आप आज भी investment start करते हैं तो आपका 20 years कैसे निकल जाएगा, you will never realize. But the wealth will be created in say long term only, 20 years, 25 years, and there the role of advisory is very important. I have a little doubt personally कि जो अभी fintechs के through या जो बहुत सारा जो investment आ रहा है millennials, अभी we have to see कि वो कितना long term कितना survive करता है. So that is one thing. Yeah, you have some questions.
We take a question.
Average value 2 years.
Average is 2 years. Sir is saying कि वो average 2 years रहेगा, but I'll tell you one more data कि जो average investment जो advisory के through भी आ रहा है वो it is not more than 3 years. It is not more than 3 years. So that is again a concern. So with this, I would like to show one slide, sir, if you allow me 5 minutes, 10 minutes.
I think we're running out of time.
Okay.
So 5-10 minutes is possible.
Okay.
So 5-10 minutes can be done, sir.
No, we have other questions also.
Okay.
Okay.
So should just form.
Keep this on, we may come back later. Right? Yeah. In fact, Sandeep was mentioning about role of advisory, which is important, and the connect
I just
between
take 5 minutes, sir.
and the human behavior as well as the SIP and how it leads to a long-term growth. And he also mentioned about the digital, physical and digital, the moving brain part of it. But in a lighter vein, in fact, one of our leading, human behavior exponent, Mr. Noah Harari in Nexus, in his latest book, he's saying that AI will give personalized advice as well as run specific humongous data, where physical human intervention is not necessary in another 15 to 20 years' time. It will be digital and not digital. In that context, how are the regulatory challenges, or how is regulation, sort of coping up with it? Any observations and suggestions from you?
So there are a lot of activities today the regulator is imposing. As you rightly said, yes, tomorrow a machine can catch up with the advisory segment, provided there is a specific input given by the advisor. Otherwise, it's not going to be like one machine algorithm is going to give the same set of output for every advisor. Even today, if you see, the same set of macro information is available, but every fund manager perceives and takes their calls differently. So to that extent, every advisor will have to give their views to the machine, and the machine will help you to create plans for thousands and hundreds of your customers. That will be the role of the machine. From the regulatory perspective, today regulator is very hawkish in terms of such things, what could lead, whether this can lead to any sort of mis-sellings which can happen. So today a regulator asks anyone who is running a robo-advisory algorithm, it is getting reviewed and filed with the regulator. And they see whether adequate stages are being taken care of before a particular model has been published. And even this is a report which every AMC is supposed to submit. If at all they are running any robo-advisory model, they are supposed to submit this report to the regulator on a quarterly basis. This is again skipping the quantitative model today. Many of the agencies run their funds along, which they claim they market, because it's largely a machine or algorithm driven inputs which goes to the fund manager to take the financial costs. But that is something which is coming into reality.
Right, as we move forward with the data that is there and the ability to crunch data with machines, and it moves every year. I think it's doubling. If that happens, they will have enormous, data points and data experiences to give specific inputs. Maybe 5 to 10 or 15 years down the line. Do you foresee that?
Most certainly, sir. How many of you here in the room have heard about Cambridge Analytica issue? Which is nothing but an entire country, the entire election of a country has been programmed by the way what you read the behavioral models of people. If that could happen on a completely and well-established market like the US, we can do that. I have a recent finding. So I was going through one of the fund houses. They are trying to launch an outbound strategy fund, which is investing in a European nation. So I happened to read the document of the auditor who was given the documents. So they say they treat the customer was coming from a European segment completely different because they have a GDPR kind of a model which is there, and they say any countries like India or other ASEAN countries differently because we have a very light finding in terms of how our data governance is being managed as of today. But there are regulatory frameworks which we also are getting into, which will have a far better governance in terms of data is concerned. So today, probably we are the first country in the nation, or sorry, the first country in the globe to have a consent framework for getting any sort of data in a place which is being made. So I'll tell you the difference between the consent models which is there in any of the European or the Western world to what which has been designed in India. So anyone who's providing the data, we call them as financial information provider. We call them as FIP. And anyone who's consuming the data, we call them as FIU, financial information user. A financial information user can be an advisor here or can be an manufacturer, anyone. So in the European model, the customer gives the consent to the financial information provider saying, hey, goes to a bank and say, give my data to the other bank because he's processing my insurance policies. But the difference what which has been kept in India is this entire construct of consent framework is kept separately. There is a separate set of RBI licensed entity who have been formed, whose duty is only to manage your consent. They cannot use the data or they don't have the data. They are data blind. They will just see whether my consent is given or not. Today there are 14 such licensed entity in the country which has been governed by RBI, which directly is monitored by Ministry of Finance today. And that is how India is progressing, giving a leadway to the entire world.
It's comforting to know that the regulator is ahead of the curve. Having said that, Sandeep, you had the final say in your SIP and you wanted to give us sort of.
So this is the final slide. Actually, this is in continuation to what Sumit mentioned about SIP, the formula of 15 into 15 into 15, and he told about 15 into 15 into 30 also. So there I got reminded that yes, SDFC agency, we have one scheme which is going to complete 30 years, and it has got a state track record of 30 years. So you can see how this SIP, this magic works, and how it can help. What I was telling you to plan the say financial goals. So, but what happens that how human psychology works. So you can see that if someone has started a SIP, the fund got say launched in the year 1995, 1st January 1995, with the name of SDFC Equity Fund. Now it is SDFC Flexi Cap Fund. So 1995, if someone has started a SIP of 10,000 rupees, 10,000 रुपए का SIP start करता है. Generally people start equity investment for how many years? 5 years? 5 साल के लिए तो start करते हैं. And I'll tell you the challenges of advisor, what the challenge advisor gets. So many of you are advisor here and many of you are investors here. So I'll just take 5 minutes, I'll tell you. If someone has started a SIP of 10,000 rupees, first year he would have invested 1,20,000 rupees. ओके 1,20,000 रुपीस का इन्वेस्टमेंट किया होता, द वैल्यूएशन आफ्टर 1 ईयर इट वाज लाइक यू हैव टू सी द फोर्थ कॉलम, इट इज 1 लाख. So 1,20,000 has become 1 lakh after 1 year. So as an investor आप क्या करेंगे? What you will do as an investor? Will you continue the SIP or will you stop the SIP? Stop the SIP. But अभी तो आपने बोला कि like SIPs are done for a longer term, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. Because when an advisor goes, this is the real time challenge. जब एडवाइजर या एक डिस्ट्रीब्यूटर एक क्लाइंट को समझाता है कि आपको SIP करना है लॉन्ग टर्म, आई हैव टोल्ड यू द स्टोरी why financial goals are important, उस समय तो the client is okay. लेकिन होता क्या है कि जब मार्केट डाउन होता है ना तो उसका बिहेवियर चेंज होता है, and there the role of that advisory is very important. Hand holding of a client is very important, understanding of client is very important. सेकंड ईयर में ठीक है क्लाइंट को समझाया कोई बात नहीं सर, इक्विटी इन्वेस्टमेंट्स आर फॉर द लॉन्ग टर्म. 2 साल के बाद क्या हुआ, दिस इज द रियल स्टोरी. द टोटल इन्वेस्टमेंट अमाउंट इज 2,40,000 रुपीस. ओके 10,000 का SIP 2 साल में 2,40,000 रुपए कट गए. यू नो व्हाट इज द वैल्यू ऑफ 2,40,000 रुपीस? इट वाज 1,75,000 रुपीस. तो आप अपने दिल पे हाथ रख के बोलिए एज ए इन्वेस्टर 2,40,000 रुपए का 1,75,000 रुपए हो जाएगा, तो आप इन्वेस्टेड रहेंगे? विल यू रिमेन इन्वेस्टेड?
95 में तो नहीं रहेंगे.
नहीं रहेंगे, 95 में तो नहीं रहेंगे, अभी भी नहीं रहेंगे सर. अभी भी मैंने बताया 3 साल का टोटल इक्विटी इन्वेस्टमेंट का 3 साल से भी नीचे का होराइजन है. बट जब 2,40,000 का 1.75 होता है तो जो इन्वेस्टर है वो जो डिस्ट्रीब्यूटर को बुला के बोलते हैं यार तुमने मेरा पैसा कहां लगा दिया, कहां फंसा दिया, इससे अच्छा तो मैं बैंक एफडी कर लेता. एंड फ्रेंड्स लेट मी रिमाइंड यू, मैं बात कर रहा हूं 96 की, जबकि जो एफडी रिटर्न्स थे दे वर इन डबल डिजिट्स. उस समय 2,40,000 हैज बिकम 1.75. आज की डेट में भी वो सिनेरियो है या आ सकता है. एंड यू हैव टू अंडरस्टैंड कि लोगों का बिहेवियर कैसा होगा, जो इन्वेस्टर्स है उनका कैसा होगा, या जिनको ह्यूमन टच नहीं है, जिनका हैंड होल्डिंग नहीं है, उनका बिहेवियर कैसा होगा. 3 साल के बाद द सेम SIP 3,60,000 रुपीस, उसका वैल्यूएशन हो जाता है 3,42,000 रुपीस. अब बताइए एज ए इन्वेस्टर आप इन्वेस्टेड रहेंगे या नहीं रहेंगे? 360 हैज बिकम 342. रहेंगे या नहीं रहेंगे सर? थोड़ा सा घाटा हो चुका है, अभी आवाज दीजिए.
लेके भाग जाएंगे 95 में.
क्या करेंगे?
लेके भाग जाएंगे.
लेके भाग जाएंगे, नुकसान कर लेंगे. 360 का 342 मैक्सिमम लोग चले जाते हैं सर. यू आर करेक्ट, यू आर राइट, नुकसान में जाते हैं. और जब निवेशक नुकसान में जाता है ना, इन्वेस्टर नुकसान में जाता है तो पलट के नहीं आता है, 5 लोगों को इन्फ्लुएंस करता है. अरे यार बकवास है म्यूचुअल फंड. मैं उस समय की बात कर रहा हूं, ये 95, 96, 97 की, जब म्यूचुअल फंड सही है नहीं हुआ करता था. ठीक है, तो उस समय ये, बट आज के डेट में भी यही है. 3 साल में अगर रिटर्न नेगेटिव होते हैं, अभी जो हमारे जो इन्वेस्टर्स हैं जो हमारे पास आए हैं, आप में से बहुत लोग इन्वेस्टर्स होंगे, बहुत से लोग डिस्ट्रीब्यूटर्स होंगे, जो इन्वेस्टर्स आए हैं 3 साल में, दे हैव कम सीइंग द रिटर्न. थिंक ऑफ अ सिनेरियो कि 3 साल का तो उनका रिटर्न का 20% का रिटर्न मिला हुआ है. अभी उनका एक्सपेक्टेशन है कि आने वाले 3 साल में भी ये रिटर्न मिलेगा, बट इट वोंट हैपन. आइडियली इट शुड नॉट हैपन. तो कैसा बिहेवियर रहेगा? एंड वही SIP 4 साल में 4,80,000 रुपए 6,19,000 रुपए हो जाते हैं. मतलब 3 साल में जो SIP नेगेटिव थी, 4 साल में 4,80,000 रुपए, इट बिकम 6,19,000 रुपीस. अब बताइए क्या करेंगे आप?
भाग जाएंगे.
भाग जाएंगे कि यार बहुत हो चुका, काफी रुला चुका है फंड, अभी तो निकल जाओ. करेक्ट? नहीं, अभी नहीं भागेंगे सर. भागेंगे तो अब मैं आपको बताऊंगा कि 5 साल में 6 लाख रुपए का वैल्यूएशन हो जाता है 17,95,000, क्योंकि मार्केट तो साइकिल्स में चलता है, यू नो. तो 5 इयर्स में 6 lakhs बिकम अराउंड 18 लाख रुपीस, 17,95,000 रुपीस. अब क्या करेंगे? दैट इज द मोस्ट इंपॉर्टेंट क्रिटिकल पॉइंट. निकल जाएंगे? लगेगा कि यार ये रिटर्न तो कभी बन नहीं सकता था, ये कैसे बन गया?
पार्शियली ले लेंगे. एटलीस्ट पार्शियली ले लेंगे.
पार्शियली ले लेंगे, निकल जाएंगे. डिस्ट्रीब्यूटर के थ्रू होगा तो उसको बिना बताए AMC में आके रिडम्पशन कर देंगे. सडनली एक लैंड मिल जाएगा, कुछ नहीं होगा. दिस विल हैपन, बट दिस इज द शॉर्ट टर्म. दिस विल नॉट हेल्प यू टू गेट योर गोल. आपको हमेशा वो गोल ध्यान में रखना है कि जो पैसा है ना, इस पैसे से मुझे 30-40 साल रहना है. अगर एक यंगस्टर इस बात को ध्यान में रखे कि मेरा जो अर्निंग एज इज ओनली 55 ईयर, आई हैव टू सर्वाइव टिल 100 ईयर, तो मैं क्या करूंगा?
और ये एसआईपी अगर चल रही होती, अगर ये एसआईपी चल रही होती सर, तो अभी तक के 30 साल के अंदर ये मेरे पास जो डेटा है 2024 मार्च अगस्त तक का है, टोटल 35,50,000 रुपीस कट गया होता 10,000 रुपए करके। एंड यू नो व्हाट इज द वैल्यू? सर ने क्या बताया था? 15 into 15 into 30 कितना होगा? He told 10 करोड़। सर ये जो एसआईपी है ये 30 साल के अंदर अगस्त तक का रिटर्न इसका जो था वो 21.67% रिटर्न था, एंड द करेंट वैल्यूएशन वाज अराउंड 21 करोड़ अगस्त में, 20.41 करोड़, 21 करोड़। तो एसआईपी कैन क्रिएट सच काइंड ऑफ वैल्यू, बट यू हैव टू रिमेन इन्वेस्टेड फॉर अ लॉन्ग टर्म। 30 साल बहुत लंबा समय नहीं है। अगर आपको लंबा समय होता है तो जाके दिल वाले दुल्हनिया ले जाएंगे, ठीक है? You watch the old movies and you will understand it is not the long term, and you can create wealth, you can plan your growth. So this can only happen through mutual fund, and mutual funds सही है। Okay, so sir, thank you so much for giving me so much of time. Thank you.
Extremely engaging discussion. In fact, we could have gone on and on with this, maybe another session. But having said that, we are running out of time, and actually we have run out of time. And I think, make a general statement, the expansion of any firm or asset management company can be estimated through exploring the latest technology held by that company, which also removes the doubts about the survival of such businesses. We need to take, it has to be prolonged, whether you are, an investor in SIP or even the company, you have to be invested for a prolonged duration in the latest technology. So having said that, I must thank Sumit, Sandeep, as well as Vignesh. It was a very engaging. Thank you all for being part of it.
So thank you so much for this engaging session. And before I end this session formally, it's a time to felicitate. I would request the chairman, sir, to felicitate the speakers on the dais. Mr. Sumit Kati, Head of Investor Education Distributed Engagement from Baroda BNP Paribas Mutual Fund, with a token of appreciation, memento and certificate, please. To Mr. Sanjay Srivastava, AVP and Regional Business Head from HDFC Asset Management Company Limited. Mr. Vignesh Kumar and Subramaniam, Head of Products from K Fintech. I would request all the speakers on the dais to have a group photograph with the chairman, sir. Thank you once again for such a lovely session. will not take much time to change. Our next session, the final session for the day, which is very engaging. Give us 5 minutes. There will be no breaks. We'll start shortly. Thank you.
I managed money all my life.
I would now request our esteemed speakers for the next session, the final session for the day, which is a panel discussion session, how do wealth managers and investment advisors evolve to tap the ever-burgeoning affluent middle class, which will form the base of Viksit Bharat by 2047. For this, I would like to invite our esteemed speakers on the dais, Mr. Shashi Krishnan, former CEO, VPS Trust, and Director of National Institute of Securities Market, onto the dais, please.
Huh? I want to study more.
Mr. Rahul Banerjee, MD of PGP Academy Private Limited, onto the dais, please. Mr. Anindapal Chaudhary, CEO of WellCap Distributors Private Limited, onto the dais, please. May I now request Mr. Sudhin Roy Chaudhary, sir, onto the dais, please. I would request Mr. Roy Chaudhary, sir, to moderate the session and take it forward from here. Over to you, sir. Thank you so much.
Good afternoon, friends. In the last session, Sumit, I think, took the sleep out of everybody after the post-lunch session. And Sandeep took us to cloud 9 when he showed us the figures of how 35 lakhs can become 21 crores. Great session we had. This session we also have a wonderful panel. I think it will also be very interesting to hear some of them. We have already heard Mr. Shashi Krishnan, his financial fluency and all these things. But we have a very interesting topic to discuss. How do wealth managers and investment advisors evolve to tap the ever-burgeoning affluent middle class, which will form the basis of Viksit Bharat by 2047? So there will be a lot of discussions. We will be asking a lot of questions. The panelists will be talking, giving the answers also. We'll invite some questions also. So we will start with Mr. Anindapal Chaudhary. We'll start with Anindapal Chaudhary, and I would put a question that Mr. Chaudhary, evolving client needs, how do you see the financial goals
of the affluent middle class evolving over the next 2 decades, and how are you adapting your services to meet them?
Sure. Very good afternoon to all of you. First of all, let me thank my own chamber, Indian Chamber of Commerce, for inviting me as a speaker. To answer your question, sir, the middle class, the aspirations are changing. So earlier, people were happier with a smaller home. Now they have an aspiration to get into a larger condo, a 2 BHK. Aspiration is now getting into a 3 or 4 BHK. The kind of automobile, the car they are riding is changing. Earlier, seldom we used to hear that people are sending their children for overseas education. Now it has become a very frequent affair. So in order to sustain all these aspirations, there is an emerging need of investments or savings. And as a result, we wealth managers are also, kind of designing our goals. Earlier, goals were very, very simple. A basic education of a child, a basic retirement planning. But now, a wealth manager has to be extremely mindful. And as Mr. Pati said that, there is no one size fits all. It has to be a very, very client-centric approach, depending on how many children, what is their, goal for education, and today's clients are trying to save for their children. I have a client whose children are age 10 and 12. From now on, he's been asking me that if I send them to US, what kind of education one will incur, and if I send the other to IIT, what kind of savings I need to have. So accordingly, we all have to do this financial load planning, really meticulously, very, very client-centric. And that's how we are also, broadening our mindset, our horizon of planning.
Exactly. This is a changing scenario which we are seeing all over India, not only in Mumbai, Delhi, but everywhere, all over India, not only the metro cities also, even in the tier 2, tier 3 cities also we are seeing this. Earlier, if you ask somebody to pay 5 lakhs mutual fund, it was a big proposition. Today, I was told even 50 lakhs is not a very big proposition. People are willing to pay. So, I would now like to go on to Mr. Shashi Krishna. So the regulatory framework, how can regulatory bodies like NISM ensure that wealth management professionals are equipped to address this evolving needs of the affluent middle class by 2047?
So, interesting question, because we use mass affluent, and I'm not too sure what mass affluent means, because traditionally we have said affluent means people who earn 2 lakhs to 10 lakhs, but literally every Indian now earns 2 lakhs to 10 lakhs, right? So is every Indian mass affluent nowadays or not? We don't know. But I think you're perfectly right, because the challenge is not so much in the regulation, but is in the fact that the landscape itself is changing. So today, I'm reminded of what Nandan Nilekani said a few days back, when he said that the two big drivers of change in India will be the ONDC and the account aggregator, because there is so much of data that is now available to us. And when this public digital infrastructure marries the platforms that you people are going to put in place, I mean, there will be a whole new sort of generation of regulations that will need to come in. And I think the biggest challenge that the regulators will have is to sort of get on the top of that. If you read the November 7th Economist, it says that there is a sort of the democratization of the Indian markets has now reached a stage where almost 1 in 5 Indians is participating in the capital markets. So it is just the sheer size of this whole thing, and the fact that digitization will take it to a whole new
sort of level, that is going to be the challenge for the regulator. I think the regulators are on the top of it. Believe me, at least at SEBI, I can tell you, the use of technology today to regulate the markets has reached a completely new level. If, for example, you are talking about how do you monitor insider trading on the stock exchange, the entire insider trading sort of monitoring is done through online heuristic models. So the regulator also is now moving into being a completely different feature from what was traditionally the what do you call it, the stick kind of method which they used. So I think there's going to be a huge change that will happen in that space.
In fact, regulations are always organic, it's not static. With changes in the market, changes in the ecosystem, the regulations also change. What regulations we had in SEBI, say 20 years back.
So you'll be the regulator, so you know, sir.
Yeah, I was a regulator also. Yes. So thank you, Mr. Shashikrishnan. Next, I move to Mr. Rahul Banerjee. Mr. Banerjee, I have a question for you. Education initiatives. What specific programs or certifications does PGP Academy offer to prepare wealth managers for the dynamic needs of the middle class in the future?
Good evening, everybody. First of all, massive thanks to ICC for participating. Now, before I answer that, I think there is a need to probably mention why we are discussing moving from financial inclusion to financial well-being. And when we are talking about clients of the future, what are we exactly looking at? Now, we are all talking about having a whole lot of data, but the idea is to read that data as well and make sense of it and then plan things accordingly. Now, right now, what we have in India is a pyramid with a massive base, which is primarily what would be known as, still be known as the developing economy or the developing. We have a middle class. We say that the middle class is the backbone of the country, but the middle class also gets bashed in from all sides, especially for taxation. And then we have a small elite. Going forward, it's going to look very, very different. Now, moving from the present income levels that we have and the wealth that one has to 20, 25 years from later, when we are looking at 100 years of independence, we would be having a massive middle class. And that middle class would be very different from the middle class of today in terms of earnings, in terms of wealth, and financial advisors, or wealth managers, bankers who deal with clients, family offices, there are some specialists who run family offices. So they would be having to take into consideration the changes that need to be implemented between now and then. And hence, probably the need to start discussions from financial planning to wealth management, right? We have been speaking on financial planning for the last, let's say, 10, 15 years. Now the need to move towards wealth management. Now coming back to the specific question, so we provide, quite a few training programs. One couple of them would be exclusively with Moody's. The prime example would be the Certified International Wealth Management Program. Then you have the Award in International Wealth Management Program, which has been widely been supported by the industry. I have to make a special mention of HDFC AMC in this case. They have supported we have had 5,000 people in one single batch for this program across the country, and 15 other countries joining it, advisors from 15 other countries. Also, we are participating with CFA Institute as a knowledge partner for their investment foundations program. Now, all these programs, and we also have a ton of programs specifically looking at retirement planning, because we believe that at the end of the day, all these discussions we had on goal planning and what is long term. The point is, why would I be investing long term? Why should I? So if my goal is for a short term, I'll be investing for a short term. If my goal is for a long term, I'll be investing for the long term. And among that, the most important thing is retirement planning. And we have specific programs built for retirement planning for advisors as well as for the general public to have an understanding.
Thank you. Thank you. So we move on to some more questions. I would put two questions to Aninda. One is that on technology and the other is on product innovation. On the technology front, technology versus human touch. How can wealth managers balance the use of AI and automation with personalized advisory services for middle class clients? And the next question is product innovation. What innovative financial products do you think will cater to the unique need of the affluent middle class by 2047?
Okay, so I'll address your first question. Yeah. That is, technology versus human touch. So in our business, we believe that high tech means high touch. Okay, so we use AI. Technology can help definitely to do a better risk classification, portfolio rebalancing, cater to clients' different needs. But there, a human touch is extremely important because empathy in which you can address a client's specific need that AI perhaps today is not really enabled. I'll give you a situation. One of our client had a health insurance, a very large cover, but he was going through a cancer surgery. The moment he got admitted and he, presented his health insurance copy, the Bangalore hospital refused, saying that, we will not cover this. You have not declared something like that. The gentleman, before going through the surgery, his blood pressure had shot up and he was pretty unwell rather. There, as a prudent advisors, we got involved, we used our personal network and spoke to the insurance company. We went to the level of the CEO of the company and eventually got 100% of the claim reimbursed. And then thankfully the client has recovered also from the surgery. So I think technology, it has to be a brilliant amalgamation between technology and human touch. Both are very, very important. Coming back to your second question, sir, on the product. See, in today's, affluent clients are not really satisfied with the very basic, products. I mean, when we were young, I'm 53, so when we were young, I remember we used to hear about three products, three investment avenues: LIC, second is properties, third is FD. Unfortunately, none of them can beat the inflation today. So the clients are really savvy, and while this is an MF conclave, of course, MF, we still have only 17% penetration in the country, and there is lots to be done. But today's clients are interested in global opportunities. They want to have a dollar-specific portfolio that would help their children when they go and study abroad, that they can utilize. New opportunities of late has emerging is the unlisted share space. Lot of good companies are their ESOP options the employees are selling in the secondary market. So there has been a need of that. A lot of the clients are exploring the gift city opportunity. So clients today, sir, what happens? The information is democratized. That's why clients are extremely aware, and they continuously ask more and more questions to the wealth managers. And so that's the reason. A proper financial planning is very, very important. I'll come back to that. In what would be our equity ratio, within equity, what would be a mutual fund, what would be the other products, and in the debt space, what would be bonds, etc. So it's very, very important, and depending on the client's exact requirement, the different kind of products and propositions are there in the market, and the wealth managers are suggesting that.
you mean to say that there is a good churning of innovative products in the market?
I mean, it's continuously emerging, sir. It's continuously emerging, and I mean, today, one client would not like to put all his eggs in one basket. Not 100% would be in a mutual fund, or 100% would be like an FD. They would like to explore different opportunities, and for that, I mean, it is our role of our wealth manager has become very important. First and foremost, you have to be knowledgeable enough to guide your client and to cater to their exact needs.
One question I have is that how to guide a very senior citizen in this product?
So, sir, first and foremost, I mean, again, I come back to financial currency. What happens when we used to approach somebody saying that we do wealth management, and the person always says that no, I am very sorted. I know everything. I have done my bit. So then one should ask that, okay, sir, have you done your cash flow planning? Let's say you are 60 and you would live for the next 25 years. So what is your monthly expense? Okay, and these days there are hardly people who enjoy the pension other than the government sector or companies like Nestle. Hardly anybody has pension, so one has to live out of their own corpus. So if you ask that question, sir, okay, so if your monthly expense is 2 lakhs, in a year it is 24 lakhs. Okay, so 24 into next 20 years or 25 years, you are surviving. Have you done that cash flow? Do you have that much of corpus? And you have to keep inflation also into consideration. What is 2 lakh today will be 2,60,000 maybe after 3 years. So have you done that? Is this Excel in front of you? And what we see, sir, most of our clients have not done it. Okay, they think that, okay, I have 2 crores, I am satisfied. I am sorted. But whether it is 2 crore or it is 2.89 crore or it is 4.1 crore, that has to be not out of your mind. It has to be on the Excel. And you need to exactly know where you stand, whether that much of corpus is there or not. Also, sir, this is only about the normal living. These days, travel has become, a very, very important aspiration for everybody. Even because of the good health, I have seen, affluent retired people, they love to travel 3-4 times a year. They go to various places. So, what is your travel corpus? Have you saved, for your travel corpus separately? All that can only be done through a good financial planning.
Next, I would like to go back to Mr. Shashi Krishnan, sir. I have 2 questions for you. One is on the skill development, and then the other one is on technology integration. On the skill development, what initiatives is NISM undertaking to bridge the gap between current skill sets and the skills required to cater to the growing demographic? And the next question is technology integration. What role does NISM foresee for technology and digital tools in revolutionizing financial advisory services for the middle class?
So I'll answer both the questions at the same time. First of all, I think we all need to accept the fact that not only will products be delivered digitally to the near future, financial literacy and financial education will also be delivered digitally. And we cannot escape this fact. And therefore, taking on the argument from the previous speaker, whether the digital model or the physical model is the right model for wealth advisory is still going to be a debate. And I'll tell you why. Just last week, I spent almost 4 hours with Lalit Kesre in Crow, the guy who set up Crow. And I asked him this very same question. And he says that we don't believe that the future will require a physical personal touch. And this is an opinion that he had. It is not an opinion that I have. And he says that our experience in the real world, when we deal with digital customers, and the platforms today
have penetrated to almost, hundreds and hundreds of second and third tier cities in this country. And most of the people they are onboarding are, almost 70% of the people they are onboarding are first time customers. And as our friends from the mutual fund were telling us, 25% of all new systematic investment plans are coming through those platforms. So you need to understand that the mass market and the mass affluent market, which is today 40 crore people, will become 100 crore people by 2047. It is going to be a huge market. And if we are going to say that we are going to have a physical touch to those 100 crore people, then either we should have a whole host of, not the whole of Calcutta should typically turn into becoming, personal advisors, which I don't think is something that this country can actually achieve. That's an opinion that I have. And therefore, digital is going to become extremely important in, whatever approach we take. And when we do financial literacy or financial education or skilling, as you call it, because our purpose in NISM is primarily capacity building for the securities market ecosystem. But we also do believe that we need to skill the entire, the financial ecosystem itself for, us to continue to be. And my own sense is there are two parts to the work. One is the investor himself. And two is the provider of these services, whether it is the securities market ecosystem itself. And believe me, we are trying to reach out to the investor through various digital programs. We have got financial literacy for Bharat. We have the securities investor education certifications. We are trying to reach out to investors. And I know it's going to be a tall order because there are two problems out here. One is, in spite of the fact that we say that digital literacy in this country is fairly evolved, my sense is that it isn't evolved to the extent that we think it is evolved. And from the product manufacturers, I think there is an even bigger problem. So because what typically has happened in the entire securities market ecosystem itself is that access has improved dramatically through digital, but the cost of transaction has also fallen dramatically. So today, with the cost of transaction falling dramatically, people are having to put less money in to do a trade, and the fact that the transaction costs have become so small, this has become a game. We have gamified the real market, and we haven't given people an ecosystem to allow them to test failure. So unless people experience failure and know that investing in markets is not risk-free, there is risk in this market. And I have experienced what you call failure, and therefore I will not behave in such a way. You will find that as we reach out to more and more people through technology, as we deliver more and more products through technology, especially the wealth tech firms, you could be encouraging risky behavior. So I think we have to protect ourselves against that also. So I think that digital is here to stay. There is no doubt. But the fact is that we need to educate both sides of the system, and therefore the question of skill development comes in. And what we have done is we typically have a grid where right from the investor down to the rest of the market players, we know what are the kind of skill levels they want and try to populate that skill matrix and deliver that to the investors in the market ecosystem.
Excellent. I'll go back to Mr. Banerjee. Mr. Banerjee, can you also add to this? One is industry academic collaboration, and the second will be focus on behavioral finance. So the industry academic collaboration, how does PGP Academy bridge the gap between academic knowledge and the industry practices to ensure real world readiness for wealth managers? Okay. And the next one will be focus on behavioral finance. How is PGP Academy addressing behavioral finance in its curriculum to help advisors better understand the financial behavior of the middle class investors? Every time we are coming back to that middle class investors.
Okay, so what I'll do is I'll flip the order of the questions and probably take the second question first, right? Now, when we are talking about behavioral finance, what is behavioral finance? When we mention behavioral finance, what are we actually talking about?
What we want to talk about is behavior in general that shows up in decisions that we take in finance. Now, there are a couple of things that throughout the day that I would want to, that were discussed that I would want to pick up here. One is when we are talking about somebody as an investor is his or her experience. So, whatever experience, let's say when Sir was mentioning, Chaudhary Sir mentioned that I was not a big investor in mutual funds. Now I have started. Earlier I was not. Because he is a product of his experience. Right? Let's say somebody of my age would be having certain experience, and people who have joined the investing world in the last 3 years would be a different breed altogether. Right? So everyone is a product of their experience, and their behaviors are shaped accordingly. Now, all of us have some inherent biases, and these biases would make or break us. One important aspect of learning for anything, is probably realizing these are the shortcomings that I have, and this is how it can be fixed. Now, when we talk about that aspect in behavior linked to financial decisions, this is where the role of advisors, whether it is a financial, whatever name we give it, whether we are talking about an RIA, whether we are talking about RIA as in registered investment advisor, whether we are talking about a registered retirement advisor, a mutual fund distributor, a banker, wealth manager, whatever name we give, the idea is they are going to be the vanguards of this entire movement. So for them to understand and then to explain it to clients is something that becomes extremely important. Also, on the point of behavioral finance, and we spoke about risk-o-meter as far as funds are concerned, right? At the same time, while we have risk-o-meter for funds, we have something called a risk appetite analysis for clients. As of today, if you take up the risk appetite of pretty much anybody, it is fantastic. It is fantastic because everything is going good. What happens when the markets turn? Then you have a completely different behavior. If we look at educating clients, Srivastava mentioned, this is the market, this was the investment, value was down, what would you have done? No matter what, in hindsight, right now we are saying we would have stayed. 95% people would have left, 5% would have stayed, I am one of those 5%. It's all in hindsight, right? So the point is, if we make people aware of that beforehand and work on that behavioral aspect, that is how it is going to work. There are fantastic programs and tools towards this. And so that is one. The second, now coming to the first question. So a lot of our programs that we do is simply getting an understanding of investor behavior, working with a few thousand advisors across the country, and then also working with AMCs, understanding what are they looking at, and we don't really deal with specific products. So we don't deal, it's not that, if we have a training, let's say, we'll not talk about a flexi fund for HDFC or an UTI. We don't do that. We would be working on basically we would be talking about the client and how we can help them, advisors, how can we help advisors provide a value addition to their client with a client first approach. So that is where we work with corporates, we work with asset management companies, we work with banks to provide customized training for their partners.
Training is also very important, isn't it?
So training, coaching, whatever name we give, and I think the key is learning. I've heard many a wise man say that you start aging when you stop learning. So I think everybody who is here they've been there since the morning. So the idea is they have to come up here and stay the entire day because they are learning. So as long as we are learning, I think we are young. So yes, learning, training is extremely important.
You segmentize the market well by giving the skill trainings.
Uh, there is a certain amount of difference when we speak about, let's say, if we are speaking to an advisor vis-a-vis when we are discussing with a client. The discussion is always going to be the same points, but how it is approached and how we go about that training is slightly different. But even with all our discussions with advisors, the point has always been keep your client first. If your client is taken care of, if you do an honest job at that and not worry about your earnings at that point in time, it all plays out in the long run.
Okay. So I'll again go back to Anindya. Anindya, again I'll ask you two questions before I move on to Mr. Krishna. Wealth creation and client education. Balaji was already talking about this training and educating the clients and the agents also. In wealth creation and preservation, what strategies do you recommend for middle class clients to move from wealth creation to wealth preservation and intergenerational wealth transfer? Very important, intergenerational wealth transfer.
Absolutely.
And client education, how can wealth professionals proactively educate middle class clients to avoid financial pitfalls and make informed decisions?
Right. So I'll start with your first question.
Wealth creation.
Wealth creation. So wealth creation is a very defined process. It is not I mean, an overnight solution. I'll give an example. Earlier days, I mean, as I told you that we have been a banker, and what used to do in our banking days, there was a sales target, there was a sales pressure, and what used to happen typically, I mean, a role of a RM used to be like a pharmacist. What happens to be the pharmacist? You go to a shop and tell them, कि भैया मेरा सर दर्द हो रहा है. He will give you a Saridol. He will not ask, do you have blood pressure? Do you have any other problem? But they will give you. So always our RM's role was like this. Client says, I have 10 lakh of rupees, where to invest? Sir, this is the best fund. Please invest here. And that must be an NFO which is offering him the maximum commission. But what happens when we go to a doctor? A doctor do not start writing the medicine. He first asks you what is your age, what is your problem, what is your height, what is your weight, what medicines are you currently having. They will write on the left side of the prescription, only then they will start writing the medicines. So a wealth manager's job is exactly like that. You have to know your client first, and you have to know what is missing in that client's portfolio. And that is the first step of wealth creation. And when talking about preservation, as you correctly said, sir, what do we, let's say, tell an elderly client? We have to remember for an elderly client, there has to be a part of the portfolio which will generate a cash flow for that client. So that cannot be at a very speculative asset class. That has to be relatively kind of a date-oriented or a very less volatile kind of portfolio. Okay, so that one has to keep in mind. Second, in terms of an intergenerational transfer, see what happens today, a role of a wealth manager is becoming like a lawyer or a CA. What happens that in a family, when the elder dies, the next generation knows that the family doctor or the family lawyer knows everything. What was the will? What was my father has left behind? What was his instruction? Today, a wealth manager's job is exactly like that. The wealth manager is being consulted
so that the next generation do not feel anything problematic. So what we see, a lot of people invest randomly. They do not really have either a survivor, in each of their investments. They do not mention sometimes the correct email ID, and it is not done in a very planned manner. So all of that one has to really address so that it's a very seamless transfer at the case of an eventuality. One also has to see for the preservation thing whether my client is very well covered with an adequate insurance, health insurance or not, because that is a big expense when you grow old. So all these plays a very very important role for a legacy creation, and whether the client has done a will writing or not, or whether he has done an estate planning or not. These are through our family office propositions. We cater to all these. Coming back to the client education, sir, there are two ways to look at it. Sometimes I see people using very fancy English, which sometimes goes miles, away from the clients because they don't really understand. What you have to take your client through a very basic thing. What is risk? What risk means what? What is debt equity ratio? And we insist a frequent portfolio review with the clients so that we try and tell them that what is going right or wrong. Coming back to Sandeep's point, whether a client will exit or stay when the portfolio is down, there is a way and method to keep the client contained. So what we have designed in our app, we have an app. So there, each and every scheme will have a benchmark of a broad benchmark and a scheme benchmark. So even if your portfolio is down, you will be able to know whether as per the broad benchmark or the scheme benchmark, that particular scheme is doing well or not. If the whole industry is doing badly and you are relatively better, then you know that even if it is negative, you are put it on the right set of assets. So that these because what happens, everybody says I am the best. Like those, you remember that Saaf ad of Lalita ji, uski kameez, meri kameez se safed kaise? How will you prove कि आपकी कमीज सफेद कैसे? You have to prove with the number. You have to show that this particular investment which you have suggested, whether it is doing well above the scheme benchmark or the broad benchmark or not. All this is very important to hold your client's hand and walk the path. A wealth manager has to be, your client's biggest friend. He has to know each and every personal information of the client, and only then a financial goal would be achieved.
I agree with you, but if Sandeep's chart was shown to a 30-year-old person, he would not exit at 5 years. Am I correct, Sandeep? He will stay till 60 years when he retires.
Absolutely.
So, thank you, Balaji. Thank you. Again, put two questions to ethics and standards and financial literacy collaboration. How can NISM enforce higher standards of ethics and accountability among wealth managers to build trust with the middle class? This is first question. And second is financial literacy collaboration. How is NISM collaborating with financial education institutions to promote financial literacy among the middle class, thereby creating informed investors?
So before I answer these two questions,
Just one right in between. When we are talking of Viksit Bharat 2047, and when you are seeing that there will be 100 crore customers, now we don't have so many agents or wealth managers to cater to each and every client. So digital has to come in a very, very big way. And we have to also train the clients how to go about digitally so that he can be also well educated.
That is the digital fluency.
Yes,
So, but before I answer this question, may I take on what Anindya said 2 minutes back? So, could I just share that? Yeah. Because when we talk about building wealth and preserving wealth, mean, I like to put it a little differently because, as Sensar knows, I come from the pension sector. And I would say the accumulation phase and the decumulation phase. Now, unfortunately, in this country, so all wealth managers only concentrate on the accumulation phase. Nobody concentrates on the decumulation phase, and you will know coming from the insurance space, we hardly can sell an annuity. And it's so difficult to sell an annuity product. And I think that's primarily because the way the incentive structure is organized. And therefore, there is no incentivization of the accumulation phase. The mutual funds will pay commission and whatever. In the decumulation phase, maybe you don't get that incentivization. So I think you need to now build out wealth management systems that take care of the entire accumulation phase and the decumulation phase. That was one. So the second take I had was you were talking about this intergenerational transfer of wealth, and I agree with everything that Anandya said. But I got into a very interesting conversation just 3 days back when I was my father-in-law's brother. I mean, he's very old now, he's 83, 84, about intergenerational transfer of wealth. And this gentleman said, I made a lot of money in my life, and I've got one property in Bangalore, one property in Chennai, one property in Coimbatore. So he seems to have properties all over the place. So I said, why do you have those properties? He said, I bought them all for my children. I said, have you ever sat down with your children and asked them whether they want those properties? And his son was sitting exactly opposite. When I asked him, do you want those properties? He said, I don't. I said, then how is there going to be an intergenerational transfer of wealth when this generation doesn't want what the other generation has? I mean, we also need to understand that today's generation is an aspirational generation. They have very different requirements. They would rather have financial assets. They would rather have tokens or bitcoins or whatever it is. And if you are going to have an intergenerational transfer of property, then I think it will make absolutely no sense to the generation to whom you're transferring it to. That was just my 2 bits on what you said. But coming back to your question, sir, first in terms of collaboration itself. So, I mean, we at NISF primarily collaborate with every single part of the securities market ecosystem to sort of enhance and build capacity in the securities market ecosystem. But specifically in terms of this 100 crore population that we have, the easy taking actually is in getting to the educated ones. So what we have today, for example, is we have ties with almost 500 universities and colleges, where we try to get the younger generation to understand, how they can build up financial wealth and build up wealth for themselves. And going beyond that, so the broad idea is that, and that's the way I look at it, is that today you've got 785 districts in this country, correct? And unless you have resource persons in each of these 785 districts who can reach out to these, 100 crore people, because most of these 100 crore people are living in those districts. Many of them who live in Bombay and Delhi and Calcutta and Bangalore and Hyderabad anyway will have access to these kind of things. It's these people who don't have the access to, financial education. And the idea is to get to each one of these districts and, create resource persons in each one of those districts so they can then reach out. Because it is impossible for an RBI or a SEBI or a single institution to do this exercise, or the IRDA for that matter to do this exercise on their own. And the second part, which you were talking about in terms of financial fluency, as much as you may you may have a financially educated population, we also need to familiarize them in using these digital products. Okay? And there is where this entire concept of financial fluency comes in, because as much as you're making access easier, you also need to make the ability to use these products simpler. And I'll give you a very simple example. When I was in the national pension system, we used to have something called ENPS, and we found that there were very few takers for ENPS. And we tried to understand as to why are there so few takers for ENPS. We tried to do an analysis around that. And we found out, and it is quite obvious, it comes from a lot of the behavioral talk you were giving us a little before. It is simply inertia. If there's something that you don't need to do, don't do it. If I have to click 6 times, I have to upload a photograph, I have to upload my PAN document, I have to upload my Aadhaar card. I need to go through such a long process. Then I'd rather not do it rather than do it. And there is this very interesting example, which if I may share with you. Like there are two countries in Europe which are very, very close to one another culturally, Germany and Austria. And when you take a motor vehicle, that's a you come to the life side, but when you take a motor vehicle cover in both these countries, they want to know that if you die in a motor vehicle accident, will you do an organ donation? And organ donation is very big in those countries. So they found that in Germany, only 12% of the people opted to donate their organs in case of death on a motor. Whereas in Austria, almost 80% of the people agreed to do it. So they went to examine as to why was this happening. And they found that it was the way the question was worded. In Germany, they asked it straight up. If you die in a motor vehicle accident and are willing to donate your organs, please tick the box below. And nobody ticked the box. In Austria, they were a lot smarter. What they said is that if you die in a motor vehicle accident and you do not, if you do not want to donate your organs, please tick the box below. And nobody ticked the box. In fact, in both the cases, nobody ticked the box because that was sheer inertia, right? And I think the problem we found is that inertia very often sort of takes us to taking steps that we shouldn't be doing, and that is a big danger in financial fluency. Because if you expect everybody to operate in the way you expect them to take that digital journey, it may not happen. And therefore, we have to keep thinking through this, especially in the wealth tech industry, where it is very essential that we keep things simple and make that process simple and ensure that people don't get caught up in this inertia.
So one thing I got from Mr. Krishnan's deliberations is that never make too many properties because I'll tell you my own experience. My father, after coming back from Bangladesh, he built a house in Kolkata. There is a place called Park Circle CIQ. So he built a house there. And when he was aging and I was being transferred all over India, he said, I don't think you'll come and stay over here. I said, why not? It's our house. He said, no, I don't think you will. Because his father, my grandfather, told him that he will not stay in the house which I had built, which was in Bangladesh, Dhaka. And he had built the house in Park Circus. And true to his word, after he expired, within 3 years, I sold that property in Park Circus and moved over to the other. So friends, one thing I get very much from Mr. Krishna is that don't build too many properties. Leave cash, that is better. In fact, that can be invested in a lot of good ways. But of course, land is also a good investment. I'll come back to Mr. Banerjee again. Mr. Banerjee, I'll ask you two questions. One is global best practices, and the other is bringing together the best of global and Indian learning. So in global best practices, what global wealth management practices is PGP Academy integrating into its programs to equip professionals for a Viksit Bharat? And then repeating it. And bringing together the best of global and Indian learning. How do you envision bringing the best in global learning together with the top Indian institute like NISL to assist advisors across India, especially the Tier 2 and Tier 3 locations?
So, we deal with some of the top educational bodies in the world. Right? PGP has an exclusive collaboration with Business Analytics, Global Education. We have tie-ups with the Canadian Securities Institute. We work with the CFA Institute. Now, all these bodies, and there are a couple of others as well, but all these bodies do focus on certain key points, right? And the first point that I would want to mention has nothing to do with knowledge or number crunching. And it has to do everything to the way we as advisors behave, and that is ethics. I think ethics is the first point that I have mentioned. while ethics is something that everybody needs to adhere to, especially when we look at international collaborations, that is something that they really focus on. The second aspect would be a focus on structures and systems, right? We have advisors here who are advising, who are accumulating AUM. AUM has gone up massively for a lot of advisors. At the same time, probably the structures and systems are not there for many of them. Some of the top advisors, obviously, they do a fantastic job and they will continue to grow because of that. The third point is the discussion on whether it is human touch or high tech. One key learning from working with some of these bodies is it is not a question of whether there will be high tech or not. I don't think there can be a question of that. And anybody who believes otherwise is basically living in his own paradise. There will be high tech. There will be high tech. The idea is whether, as advisors, as humans, we would want to take advantage of that and grow our business, work on the data, create insights, help our clients, or do we just let it? And the fourth aspect would be the realization that for any developed economy, their largest funds are pension funds. Their largest funds are retirement endowments. So the idea is to build on retirement. I have been, speaking on this for the last as many years that I have been doing this, for the last 10, 11 years of me just teaching, training, coaching, whatever name you give. The idea has been please focus on retirement. One, it helps you build sticky business. It helps your clients get through some situation that can be really tough. In this aspect, I've also just mentioned one quick point that Sir has been the head of NBS. Sir mentioned about products. The idea, Anand Sir mentioned that people today do not have a lot of people don't have pensions, right? Structured pensions as in earlier. Any idea as to when this discussion started? It started, we had a report called Oasis, published in 2000, talking about how much of a danger the Indian population is in because there is no structured retirement plan. We are sitting at the end of, and this was 1st of Jan or 11th Jan, I may be missing the date, of 2000. We are sitting on 30th of November 2024. 24 years later, most people in this room would not have a structured retirement plan. We may have wealth, we may have high earnings, but a structured retirement plan with the focus not only on accumulation, but also on the distribution part. Also, in this regard, there has been a lot of discussion on, whenever people talk about mutual funds, we typically think only in terms of equity funds, right? And when we are talking about accumulation, we are thinking only in equity. When we talk about distribution, we only think in terms of fixed income products. The need to, have a bucket strategy or a staggered strategy is something that we need to take care of. Because when you are talking about investing for the long run and investing for retirement, if you are not investing at least a part of it in equity, you will get into trouble still. So these are some of the key points that we really learn from when we are working with some of the best in the world. Now coming to your question as to how we collaborate with top Indian bodies like NISM. PGP has been blessed that we have worked on a couple of wealth workshops with NISM earlier. We have worked with NSC Academy and delivered massive programs. And again, the question of tech comes in here because our programs have been based on platforms. So we are able to do large scale programs of 2,000, 3,000, 5,000 people at one go because of using technology. And Now, I think we can definitely create a lot more programs with a body like NISM, not only to deal with advisors and wealth managers, but also to focus on financial fluency. I'm going to pick that up from you, sir. Financial fluency, because that is something that we really need to ingrain from the student community upwards. The challenge is we are set by the time we become adults. Aditya Birla Group has this, mutual fund has this system of, your first check, invest from your first check. But if it is not ingrained by then the chances of making those appropriate decisions later on in life are relatively low. So we can definitely, I definitely look forward to working with NISM to work towards this.
Thank you, Banerjee. One thing I got from Banerjee was he was talking of this pension funds. Now, as he rightly said, maybe many of you over here don't have any pension schemes in our organization. Mainly the pensions were with the government and the public sector. And it was all defined benefit schemes. Till one day the central government woke up and found that ये नहीं चलेगा. Defined benefit scheme नहीं चलेगा. So they came out with the alternative NPS. And I'll tell you a secret. At one point of time, when these pension funds which were run by the government or the public sector undertakings, they were earning 9% or 8.5% interest on their funds by investing. NPS was earning 13%, 14%. So NPS was earning much more than that. It was very attractive, but it was not marketed properly. As a result, it did not pick up to a large extent, but maybe in the future it will pick up. It will give a very good.
So it's 13.5 lakh gross.
Yeah, see. Initially, when it started, it was not that people were saying, no, we are happy with the defined benefit scheme. But in the defined contribution scheme, maybe the return will be much more, provided, as Mr. Banerjee said, that if you start early, probably you will be ending up your retirement life in a very, very comfortable position than what you had in this age. So coming to the end of this, you heard the panelists, very interesting discussions we had. If any questions are there, you can raise your question. Please tell your name as well as to whom you are targeting the question. Mike.
Sir, just one question. We have to leave the hall.
What time?
So as A is at 5.
Okay, one question. Yeah, you raise your hand.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is a nice presentation. So my question is Mr. Rahul Banerjee. So you talk about behavioral finance. So I have heard about that behavioral economics, behavioral science, behavioral finance. So my question is this related or these are the separate segment of the same set actually? Behavioral finance, behavioral economics, behavioral science. So can you elaborate this point?
Behavioral science would be a much larger or encompassing discussion. But when we're talking about behavioral finance and behavioral economics, they're close by because behavioral economics would be impacted. See, the idea is when we're talking about behavioral finance, we are getting to the smallest unit, that is individual. So it is on an individual basis. The same thing when we consider larger scale, then we are talking about behavioral economics, right? And behavioral sciences would be a much larger discussion. But yes, they are linked. As I told, at the end of the day, we are what we are, right? And everything else that we do related to finance is related to how we perceive and how we react to situations.
Thank you, sir.
I think we'll have to leave the hall now.
Sir, one question.
Sorry, I've been told.
Just wanted to know, so behavioral economy, can we call it like a trend that we see generally? Is that on a bigger way, when you say?
If I may interrupt here, see, it all started with psychology, right? So, when people moved away from Freud and psychology, they said let's do behavioral psychology, and then the economists and the finance guys and all these guys come in. It's as simple as that. So go and study psychology, you will study all of this stuff, including economics.
I'm sorry, we'll have to end over here because we'll have to leave the house now. Sorry.
Request Mr. Sudhir Chaudhary sir for this wonderful session and with the panelists. May I request you, sir, to start the felicitation with Mr. Rahul Banerjee. I will now request sir to kindly felicitate Mr. Alindo Chaudhary. Although can we have the board please? I have a very special felicitation announcement. We have our wonderful gifting partner. May I request Rakhi Vishwas Gandhi to kindly come on stage. Sir. Shudin sir. You have one more felicitation. Or can I have the fishbowl? So, thank you, sir. Please have your seat. We'll just take 5 minutes to do the lucky draw. So, let me start with the gifting. Sir? So, that is for her. You are our gifting partner. So I thought Shudin sir, may I request you to kindly pick up the first coupon?
I hope it's not my card.
अरे तो उसमें डालना था ना हम लोगों ने तो
डालो डालो जाके
हमने तो डाला ही नहीं है
आप जाके डालो some of people got it there
164
डाल के एक डाला ही
There is no virus. 164 is it present here? No.
लास्ट में अभी लगी मिलना हुआ तो लास्ट में दो